Hi, I'm Jen Kingwell. I absolutely love hand piecing. It is how I make most of my quilts. So I thought I would just give you a little quick demonstration on how I go about doing that. So you can see here my little travelling kits. I travel the world and I hand stitch all the way, and that's part of it. It is so portable that you can just literally take it. I always have some pieces cut like this, and I have these two, the tin and my little pin cushion with me, and I take it to the dental surgery and the doctor's surgery because they always have to sit and wait, and I just stitch. I might just get 1 or 2 seams done, but it's amazing how quick hand piecing becomes when you're just doing little bits at a time. So I literally just have some thread and some little sharp scissors, my needles. I have a bow and needle threader. I love this needle threader. I think it's amazing. This is a beautiful, it's a Sue Spargo pattern. It's called Greta, I think. Sue's going to re-release this. It's one from a little while ago, but this was made for me by lovely Tony at Oklahoma Quilt Works, and a handmade gift's fantastic because every day I use this and I think of Tony. So that's all I need to stitch, and then I have my block wrap with all my pieces pre-cut, and I'm ready just to travel and stitch away. So I'll just quickly show you just a little bit of how I go about it. So I'm always thinking about how I'm going to put the block together, and if I can get a continuous seam, that's what I'm going to try and do. So for example, if you were machine piecing this, you'd put on opposite sides, press, and then opposite sides, but because I'm stitching with one needle and thread, I can stitch all the way around in one seam. So I use my Milliner's 11 needle and I stitch with Aurifil 50 weight thread, and I'm just going to pop my fabric right sides together, and I do pin. I find pinning really does help to make sure that you are getting everything correct. You've marked those little registration holes so nicely, so just match them front and back, and then you're going to just literally stitch along your line. All right, so it's very simple, very easy, and very relaxing. I'm just going to knock my thread off. I'll take that pin out just so that it doesn't get in the way. And all hand piecing is a running stitch. And because you've got this lovely line drawn, you don't have to think about anything. The only thing you have to think about is making sure that you've got your fabrics right sides together. That's the biggest thing to think about when you're hand piecing. You're just going to do a little running stitch. Every time I pull my needle and thread through, I just start the next run of stitches with a little back stitch. And all that is you're popping your needle in behind where the last stitch was. All right, and that's about as difficult as hand piecing gets. So I'm just going to stitch over to the registration mark. One thing with hand piecing is you never stitch the first or last 1/4 inch of the seam. So you always leave that 1/4 inch seam allowance unstitched. When I get to that registration mark, I'm going to take a back stitch just to really lock that thread into place. And then I'll add my next piece on. Now when you're hand piecing, one thing to remember is that you only ever have two fabrics on your needle at a time. So what I'm going to do is pass my needle through this triangle, just pass it through to the front of my work, and then I will pick up my next triangle and feed that onto the needle at the registration mark. So just feed it on. Right, and so now I have these 2 triangles are connected by my thread, but now what I want to do is stitch these 2 pieces of fabric together. And so I'm just going to do a stitch there and a back stitch, and then I'll just continue stitching across to this the next registration point over here. I think some of the biggest misconceptions about hand piecing is that it's hard to do. But it's so relaxing and so lovely. You are just doing a little running stitch, and most of us can do that very, very simply. the thing I love about it is you have so much control because your work is right there in front of you. So you can get your points so beautifully together because your view's not obstructed in any way by a presser foot on your sewing machine or anything like that. And you can adjust your fabric. There is so much tolerance in fabric, and because you've just got one little thread traveling up and down, you can sort of ease it in, let it out, make things fit. So I think it's a really it's accurate, it's sort of slightly mindless, for the want of a better word, or mindful, whichever way you wish to look at that. I always say it makes me a nicer person because I can just, I feel the tension in my body just relax when I sit down with needle and thread. There's something very comforting. So I think people are afraid of it for some reason, and I'm not sure why. I think people think it's slow. That's the thing that, but because I can stitch absolutely anywhere, like when I travel, I haven't got my sewing machine with me, but I can get several blocks made just as I'm sitting at an airport, or, I'll stitch in the car, provided that I'm not driving. And I can do so much stitching when I'm on the road that otherwise I would get nothing done. So while it's slower to stitch one seam, it's so portable that you can, stitch anywhere. So I think being slow is the biggest misconception about hand piecing. So another really wonderful thing about hand piecing that I love is the social aspect of it. I think people will sit and hand stitch and chat, and I don't always see that so much when people are on their machine. I was teaching a class in a store once, and I was very aware that the store owner kept coming down and was just sort of hovering near the door of the classroom. I thought she was just making sure that everything was going quite well. And when we went out for dinner that night, she said, I kept hearing people laughing and really talking loudly. And she said, I thought you must have been telling jokes or something. She said, I went down and realised that while people were just sitting hand stitching, they were actually conversing with all the people that were around them. And I do find that. I find that the pleasure of sitting with like-minded people and friends and just hand stitching is such a wonderful, it's so good for your soul to do it. So thanks for taking the time to just have a little stitch with me today. I do have online classes that are available on jenkingwell.com. So if you want to come and do an in-person class with me, please check out where I'm going to be, or if you'd like to learn online, those classes are available.